caretaker burnout is like real. That's real stuff.
Real stuff. And because it's real, and because when that happens, you're no good to yourself and you're no good to your parent either. You're no good to anyone, right? So you have to get real with yourself about your limits.
Somebody gonna cue me or do I cue myself?
Cue yourself.
Okay. Oh, guys, I am going to speak loudly because outside, Con Edison is drilling a hole in the street just in time for this here live podcast.
Yeah, we actually stopped the men on the street and we said, how long will this be going on? And they said, another 4 hours.
Oh, I've got 4 more hours of this? Oh, fun. Yay us. Yeah, they've been digging up things in the street. I'm telling you, I think they're going to find Jimmy Hoffa. That is my prediction. They're going to find Jimmy Hoffa. He is on 76th Street.
And all the streets around you are closed. You can't even get down the street.
Can't get down.
So we were like doing a whole maze to get here.
No, you can't. You don't bother anybody. Stay away, steer clear, don't bother. Every street is closed off and they're drilling for something. They're drilling for something. Maybe there's gold.
Think if they hit something that they've never hit before, like then what?
It sounds like they're cutting down trees, which are there trees growing underneath the street?
I don't know
That's what I believe.
It's fascinating.
Well, guys, we're back with another live episode. Let's get into it. What have we missed? I guess Super Bowl. Did you guys have Super Bowl parties?
You mean the Bad Bunny concert?
Right. That's what you and I. That's what you and I call it, the Bad Bunny concert.
Yes.
Jan, did you have a Super Bowl party?
I had 22 people at my new place.
You're kidding.
No,
You're
I just
joking.
felt like it would force me to get it unpacked, which it did. And it was actually really fun. Everybody brought stuff, so it made it easy. And it was like, I like a gathering like that. It's super casual. It's not like forced fun and everybody's there to watch the game. And we had a good time. It was nice to celebrate.
Let me ask you this question. Do women wear makeup to these gatherings or no makeup?
No makeup. This is like sweatpants, casual as can be.
Heaven on earth.
Do men wear makeup to these? Or no?
No, Albert?
No, well, to mine.
What about your event?
I didn't have an event, but it was fun. The Bad Bunny performance was amazing. It was so
incredible.
much fun to watch.
Which I saw after the fact. I just told you I was busy reading Jacob Soboroff's book Firestorm. I highly recommend it. It is edge of your seat recent history, and it is brilliantly written. I loved it. But Mark and Joaquin went up to watch the Super Bowl. They were supposed to come down and get me when it was like 2 minutes to halftime, so I could watch the Bad Bunny concert. And of course, they come down, and I was like, oh, is it time? And they were like, oh, no, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry, I forgot. Halftime is over.
Stop.
Halftime is over.
Stop.
Thank God we live in a world where I was able to stream it 35 different ways, which I did. I immediately watched it. I watched it again.
Oh.
I watched it again. I loved it. And I'm forcing Mark into taking salsa lessons.
Oh,
yeah.
I like
He agreed
that.
to salsa lessons.
Isn't it wild to you, all of you, being in live production, that they were able to pull that off and bring all of that onto the field? And it was crazy. It was like you were walking through a set that they just brought out there within minutes.
I immediately wanted to book a trip back to Puerto Rico because I was like, oh, you know what? We need to go back to Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
I forgot how dope it is there. And then, yes, Albert, to answer your question, I'm always astounded when they pull off shows like that, because we know what it takes to pull off a show like that.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
quite
It was
difficult.
pretty incredible.
Yes.
Pretty incredible for sure. Jan is making me work, Albert.
We have a big shoot
Till an
tomorrow.
ungodly hour tomorrow. We're doing our pre-Academy Award opening montage shoot.
Oh, boy.
Jana and Seth.
Jana
Let's
and
split
Seth.
the blame.
Why are you going to bring me into this?
I'm going to split the blame, but it's
Let's split the
mostly
blame.
Jan. I'm just going to say that we are recreating scenes from an iconic movie of this year's Oscar run-up. And what I didn't realize is Jan wants me to wear every single costume that was in the movie.
Okay, so just to be clear, Seth and I rehearsed this yesterday, and we've eliminated a few of their costumes to streamline it.
Great. Great. Because there was about 38 different costumes.
There was. But we've streamlined it a little bit more. and we will get you in and out as fast
Now
as
there's
possible.
36.
36. But
It's
can
gonna
I
be
say
fun.
they're always epic. I live for that 2 minutes of time at the beginning of the Oscar show.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
It is, but to be clear, it is 2 minutes. And Jan
I know, but
wanted
it's the
to-
best. It's worth it.
Jan believes that I should wear 2.5 hours worth of costumes in a 2-minute segment.
Well, considering what you've pulled off, I'm with Jan on this one.
It's my favorite part of that show.
It's so good.
It's such a fun thing, and people love it.
And well, it's the guaranteed part of that show. 'Cause every other part of the show is like, do we have a guest? Do we not have a guest? Do we have a
We
guest?
got big guests this year.
We do have big guests.
We do have really big guests.
Yes.
We have Liam Morgan.
Yes, amazing.
Wow.
We got Matt Friend.
Yes.
We're going to
Incredible.
announce on the air tomorrow, and I'm just going to do it right now. We've got Wycliffe performing.
Yes, amazing.
Wow.
So we're in good shape.
That's
It's a
very
big
big
show.
show. That is a very big show. Jan?
Yeah, we're
yes.
good.
Also, you guys pull it off. You only given. I say this all the time. You're given the keys to that place at midnight, and you produce a live show within hours. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should have a good one this year.
We will have a good
We
one
will
this
have a
year.
good
Do you
one. We're gonna
remember
put that
the
into existence.
Let's talk about it really quickly before we get to Dr. Gail, who is patiently waiting for us to get to the. We are, I promise, listeners, going to get to the topic at hand.
Yeah.
And maybe this will lead us into the topic at hand. Do you remember when Gelman fell off the Academy Award stage into the orchestra pit
I
and
remember
was
it very well.
horribly injured? And it was very grim. It was so bad. People don't know. People never know because we have a very stoic crew.
He was rehearsing the music segment, and he stepped backwards on the stage, and he fell into an open pit. It was maybe 2 hours before air, if that, and ambulances were there. I mean, it was insane.
horrible.
It was insane. And we just were like, you have to go to the emergency room. You have to go to the emergency room. And they put him on a stretcher. And next thing I know, he was in the control room with me. Like, I was like, what is going on? He did not leave.
Yeah.
But that was the scariest experience.
And what was so scary was that they kept telling me where he fell to watch out for that spot because it was a big open hole, like in the stage from the stairs to the stage. And I'm not kidding. It was like a vortex. Every time I had to run up the stairs, I was pulled towards the hole. I was like, what is this pit of hell that wants to suck us down there? And then the funniest part, if there was a funny part, was as we got on the plane because then we taped the show. We air the show live at 6 a.m. And we get to the airport. And by the time we get to the airport and we're getting on the plane to take off, the show is just starting to air in California. You know,
Yeah.
we're going back to New York, but it's just starting to air in California. We're all like going on that 9:15 a.m. flight home.
Right.
And so we get on the plane and like all of the producers are getting on the plane. And as they're walking on, Mark Consuelos goes, "There's no shortage of suspects." So he pushed Gelman into the organ.
Very possible. Very possible.
Genius. Another Mark line.
Every person that walked on, he's like, "No shortage of suspects
That's
on this
hilarious.
flight."
I did want to tell you something, and I think it definitely will lead to Dr.
Yes.
Gail, but I did get a call this weekend from Gail Weiner,
Yes.
my
Your
mother-in-law,
mother-in-law.
who told me, she's very excited. She told us that she won the Publishers Clearinghouse event.
God, no.
Yeah, which obviously is a scam.
Right.
And it just made me think of today's episode, what we're doing. And I was like,
Yes.
oh God, which is part of everything that we're talking about.
Yeah, so today's topic is dealing with aging parents. We're all in it. Maybe you are an aging parent and you have very irritating adult children. We're going to look at it from all aspects. But we are all talking about dealing with aging parents. There's a lot to get into. The medical, the emotional, the financial toll it takes on everyone. Dr. Gail is here. She's going to work it all out for us. Jan, what did you tell me about the sandwich
it's not
generation?
the sandwich generation anymore because everybody's living so long. It's called the club sandwich generation. Like there are
sandwich.
multiple
Yes.
like layers to this.
Well, we always assumed, and we've had this discussion many times, we live in this house now. Our kids are gone, and we assumed that our parents, we like really thought we got the timing right. The kids are going to leave and our parents are going to move in, and we are hospital adjacent to every hospital on the Upper East. And it is like, this is a foolproof system. Everybody's going to live with us. If we need nursing help or specialists, everybody's here. It's going to be a breeze for us. Our parents have other ideas. They refuse to leave their homes. So when medicals arise, when emergencies arise, Mark and I frequently find ourselves commuting to where our parents are, which is not close to either one of us. So we've got that going on. Today, Clinical Associate Professor of Psychiatry at Weill Cornell Medical College and the host of the How Can I Help podcast, Dr. Gail Saltz is here. Hi, Dr. Gail. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, guys. Hey, Jan, we have a lot in common. My mother also won the Publishers Clearinghouse about a year ago. In fact, she won more than once. And so I feel you. I hear you.
Did she give out information like mine always does? Personal
she sent in some money so that she could get the big money back. And that's a super common one. But of course they're getting cleverer and cleverer. So it's quite ubiquitous. And there's so many issues. This is a tough situation when your parents are aging, and the thing you described, Kelly, is so common. You think you are offering the most lovely thing, but I would tell you that the majority of aging parents want to stay in their home.
Yeah, they want their independence, and they're afraid that you, meaning the child, the adult child, is going to somehow impede on their independence in some way or control their lives in some way.
That's certainly part of it. And part of it is simply leaving their home feels like loss, potential loss of independence, loss of familiarity. And they don't want a role reversal with you, and they don't want to be controlled. They don't want to be controlled.
So when is it time to start having these conversations? Because our parents still put off having these conversations with us, and we're like, no, we've got to talk about this. Yeah.
Well, I would say whoever's listening now. Whatever now is now, because the earlier the better, in the sense that the farther away it is from any infirmity, lost, decline, the easier it is to have the conversation, because the conversations are about everything from share with me what you would want in hypothetical situations, which are much easier to talk about. Than when you feel the fear of these things maybe actually happening. Wow. So the earlier is the better. And the way to, rather than saying some form of like, we have to nail down your financial planning and your, medical choices and so on. It's sort of like, I would like to understand because I want to know this about you. And because I also, who knows how far in the future, so that I am making sure that I'm always cognizant of your wishes and what you would want, and that I follow that. So that's everything. And the conversation should be hopefully about different arenas. So there's the health arena, like, what are your feelings about if you ever became, very, very ill? Like, are you a person who wants to have your life sustained no matter what? Or are you a person who would just like never want to be, on a breathing machine? Are you, if you were incapacitated, who would you want to make decisions for you? This will save you a lot of heartache. whether we're talking about, siblings or, lots of things can come to bear. And there's like, who would you want? What would you want done? What would you want done about if you ever found it difficult to live in your home unaided? What would you like to see for future care? So that's like the health stuff. And that includes legal things like making a health proxy, making a power of attorney if you're incapacitated, making a living will so that your wishes are followed. And then there's the financial arena, because it's, again, often parents, as they're declining, right, they may start to struggle with things like bill paying and tax doing and, all of the, minutia of financial things to sort of, what's your setup? Would you be comfortable, not me taking over your setup, but with someone sort of having transparency? So if there is difficulty, so we can help. Who do you have in your world that is helping you with these things?
Mm-hmm. And I think the key to all of that, and you said this earlier, is that you've got to do it when things are calm. You don't want to do it when suddenly somebody's in the hospital, somebody is intubated, and then there is quarreling or screaming about what the wishes are of this person. It's important to get it in a time of calm, right?
Because inevitably in that highly emotional, and the best way to manage these things is, me, Kelly, I always want to talk about emotions, right? And I always want to deal about emotions. But in these kinds of situations, as much as you're able to be factual in the moment and less emotional, the more manageable and successful you tend to be, right? Because when it comes to the emotionality of the moment, it's often emotions that you're unaware of that drive behaviors like fear. I'm afraid they're going to die, and we have to do this, that, and I want to control it. Guilt. I feel we had this ambivalent relationship, me and my mother or me and my father, and now I feel horribly guilty about it. So even though I don't know that they'd want to be kept alive, I have to do everything. I have to, because I feel guilty if it wasn't already established that that's not what they wanted. So these intense emotions that tend to occur, as you're saying, in the traumatic situation of the bedside or the terrible thing that happened, big ones being fear and guilt, to be honest with you, they drive this to really not go well. And because different kids have different relationships with their parents, so, and by the way, if there's siblings in a family, right, they may have different from each other relationships. One's the caretaker, one's the martyr, one's the guilt-ridden, one's the everything's fine, I'm in denial, ignore it. And then you have a lot of difficulty between you all.
Yeah.
So are you supposed to say in these early conversations with the parent, which one of us would you want us to make decisions for you?
Ideally, that is best. And they don't have to be all the decisions. They could be, who would you want to make the health decision? Who would you want to be to make a financial decision? Who would you want to make a legal decision? Because that might be different sibs. I mean, right now with my mom, like, I make all health decisions and my brother tends to handle all the financial decisions. And we feel like that's a good division of labor so that we're not, we haven't talked yet about caregiver burnout, but you have to protect yourself and not be the one doing everything. So it can be good to designate, but yes, to the parent, who would you want? And ideally put that in writing.
Albert, in your family with so many siblings, what's the division of labor?
It's difficult. I mean, my sister took on a very big role with my parents, health-wise, to take care of them. My brother's more financially. Dr. Gail, and we can get into this maybe after the break, I'm fascinated by when you're just in denial. Like, you don't want, these are the people that raised you. They are the ones that are always in charge. So when is that moment that how do you coach people to say, you have to take the reins now because it's about to get to a point where it's not, you can't turn any of it around? I think that's a very important thing to figure out.
Yeah, we definitely have to get into that, but I
Yeah.
think we have to take a commercial
Yeah,
break.
we
All
do.
right, so we're going to take a commercial break with Dr. Gail. Stick around. Oh boy, did we touch on a nerve. We are back with Dr. Gail Saltz. She is here answering all of your questions about being in the club sandwich generation, a new terminology
I
for
love
me.
that.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got a call. We've got Jen from New Jersey. Jen, hi, you're on with Gail Saltz.
Hi.
Hi.
So great. Thanks for taking my call.
Of course.
My husband and I became empty nesters about a year and a half ago, and about 3 weeks after that, we became parenting our parents, and it's been very challenging, to say the least. So many questions asked, but I guess my big one is, we're adults, we're grown-ups, and when we speak to our parents, it's how do we get them to listen to what we're saying instead of looking at us as children with, 5 heads on our shoulders, and why would we suggest something like that to them?
I wish you could see this podcast, because every box in this computer group is shaking their head
In agreement.
with you. We're all agreeing with you, Jen.
Yeah, that's a common difficulty. I guess the best that I could tell you is, so you will always be their child to them, right? And what you're trying to do is talk to them not as if you're the parent now, which for them will feel controlling and they will get defensive and push back, but instead like you're adult to adult here. And you're not their child, you're not their parent, you're like on an even playing field, adult to adult, and you're enlisting them and following what they want so that they don't perceive you as taking control. So these are you noticed X and you're wondering if they might find this thing helpful or this thing to make it more organized or relieving, or what would they like in terms of some help or support with. We could be talking about whatever, right? The house, making it safer, their meds, making them more organized. This is where setting up a lot of these things, but with their enlistment, as though you are collaborating with them. Collaboratively, it would be great to install another banister, check the lighting and make sure there aren't dark spots, there aren't rugs that you'll slip out from under you, that you have a pill box that lines up all your pills, or you do the pill pack thing that has them all sent to you already packed. These sorts of things. We could be talking about the money things, you could be talking about the health things, but you're coming up with ideas and saying, what do you think? Do you think that could be helpful? Because we could maybe help you do some of that or get some of that done. Or what would you like or see as a good way to address this issue? Now, I can't tell you, the reason you do it this way is because when you come in and say, hey, you need to do this because I see this is terribly dangerous and bad, and I don't believe you can do it, right? You're accentuating for them the feeling of loss and loss of control and fear. And they're going to get the loss of the independence, they're going to get their backs up and they're just going to deflect you. So that is why taking this other tact of sort of, I know that you're able and you're doing and all those things, but I notice at this age, this is difficult, or this is difficult, or you took a fall, and what can we do together? How can I help you accomplish this to make it so that you can continue doing all the things you want to do independently?
Yeah.
Jen, do you have any siblings, or does your husband have siblings?
So I have a brother who lives a bit further closer. It wouldn't be much better.
Right.
Yeah.
And
by the way,
I'll
also throw in this, when there is real safety involved, right? And a parent won't is like, no. Like, that's when you want to enlist not you or not one of their children. So you might call up their doctor and say, I'm seeing this and I'm really worried about this. Can you speak to them? Because an outside person like a doctor, like a, even like a social worker, outside people who can come in officially usually have better luck when a parent really won't agree to something that actually is important and includes safety.
It's funny because I'll tell the doctor ahead of an appointment, set my concerns, and my father will just absolutely vehemently deny, that's not true. That never happened. I feel great. Everything's wonderful. And the doctor is like, okay, well, they can't really make them do anything. But
that's a fair point. I mean, the truth is, until someone really legally loses capacity, which does happen, we have a growing epidemic of dementia in this country, and then decisions have to be made about that. But until that point, you can't force someone. And I think what's important in this kind of scenario is that you realize you can only do what you can do, right? And you do have to protect yourself and your emotional well-being, and know that you can only lead a horse to water, right? You at a certain point, you do have to understand it's their life, and they may make some decisions you really disagree with, and know are not best, but you may not be able to affect everything.
Yep. Yeah. Thank you so much. I really appreciate
best of luck
your time.
to you. Yeah, best of luck to you, Jen. All right.
I'm so glad you guys are doing this. It's so helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I think it needs to be like an 18-part special, as a matter of fact. Let's go to Danielle in Las Vegas. Danielle, hi, you're on with Dr. Gail Saltz.
Hi, Kelly. Hi, Dr. Gail. Everything you just talked about was exactly what I was dealing with my mom. She was 88. She passed on Sunday. She passed away.
I'm so sorry. Sorry.
She fell. She was living. She was in an assisted living. She was having the time of her life finally after, just having a horrible life. And she fell and she broke her hip. And of course, one thing leads to another. And we just saw her on Saturday, and, she couldn't talk. She couldn't do a lot. But backstory really quick. My dad died in 2022 as he was laying on his deathbed. My brother on the phone said to my mom, not hi, not how are you, not anything. There's still money for my kids, right? And then screaming at her that he was coming out to sell her house, sell this, do that, do this. She hung up on him. She hasn't spoken to him basically in 3.5 years, nor has she seen her grandchildren, except for once or twice. No communication whatsoever, no emails, no text messages, nothing. Mom then said, I want to make you the executor, take your brother off. I said, are you sure? I said, it's your decision. We took care of that. Then we got a competency lawyer, so that way she was in sound mind that this is her decision. Everything is like I's dotted, T's crossed. I have been taking care of Mom 24/7 for the last 3.5 years with everything. Doctors, everything. Am I obligated to contact him to let him know that she passed away? Or is it, I don't know what to do. And also there's a college fund for the kids that are minors. Am I obligated to send that paperwork to him? I'm afraid that he's going to open up a can of worms and come after me. Even though legally he has no recourse to do so, as I was told by an attorney. But I don't know what to do at this, you know what I mean? Or do I just move on and just take care of her? I just came from the mortuary. I was just on my way back, and I'm on the radio.
Sorry. Well,
I'm like, this is a sign from God that I need to call in and just have this conversation. Because this is what I've been dealing with for the last 3.5 years. I called her big baby mom, because that's what it was. It was like I would have to tell my husband to tell her what to do.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. First of all, give yourself a beat. You haven't had even a moment to grieve. And there are a lot of emotions involved here, undoubtedly. And I hear, and understandably, you're very angry at your brother. And you're also grieved about your mother. And so it's really hard to make good decisions when you're really emotionally, in the thick of it. So I would give yourself a moment to, have some feelings and a little bit of space. And you're not, this isn't all going to transpire next week. These things take a bit of time to, settle estates and whatnot. But I would also say, I think the question you got to ask yourself is to never notify your brother about his mother's death, is going to weigh on you in a certain kind of way. And, you sound like you're a moral and good person. And that just may not, ultimately sit with you. And even though I understand what you're afraid of, if you've been advised that, the will is the will is the will, his children are innocent parties, right? They did not do what he did in this. And so you probably, don't want to punish them in this. And so ultimately that you want to follow her wishes, right? And in her wishes, she made you the executor, but she left money for her grandchildren to have for college. And that's, that's what a will is for. A will is to honor that person's wishes. And she made that clear. And there's probably, if they're going to get a college fund, then that should be known about. He's going to know anyway. But so probably you are going to tell him, but you might take a moment and let some of the dust settle for yourself, some of the anger and some of the grief. And then think about how you best want to go about that, whether you want to talk to him or whether you feel it'd be better to write him, because writing may be, is often creates a distance, allows you to really collect your thoughts, say things in the way you want to say them. It's hard to know, but in this scenario where he was truly estranged, he may feel terrible guilt. And, it may be better to, and when people feel guilty, they lash out, they feel anger, they feel all kinds of things. So you might want to write him and have it be something where he can then have whatever reaction, not at you.
Okay.
And like Dr. Gail said, Danielle, I would give yourself a beat because you haven't had a moment to grieve, and you have every right to grieve and to feel the loss of your mother, because we do, like, everybody in this room understands sort of that, the shift of having a parent that parented you suddenly become like your child. And the older they get, the more like your child they become. Even though you understand that that's your mother, she was still like your baby, like you cared for her and you nurtured her and you took care of her as best you could, and so you're going to have very strong feelings about your brother right now. But like Dr. Gail said, she made certain carve-outs in her will to take care of her grandchildren, and she trusts you enough to follow her wishes when she is not here to advocate for her grandchildren. But absolutely give yourself the time that you need. And I like the letter writing idea.
Yeah.
That was so smart.
Yeah, very smart.
And Danielle, can I say, as a brother who worships my sister for doing everything that you did for your mother, you are an amazing person to do that. And I thank you for it, because
it was very, 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 very hard. And it was hard on my relationship with my spouse as well. It was hard because my mom and I didn't have a relationship for almost 30 years. So this is on top of it. So very new.
It's incredible what you did.
That makes it even harder. That makes it even harder because even though, as Kelly said, she became like your baby and you nurtured her, your mom is your mom is your mom.
Right.
No matter what happens to them, how baby-like, all the things, estranged, all the things. There's like a core fantasy mom that is still in there somewhere. And it's when you lose them, it gives you a bit of that sort of orphaned feeling that is a really hard feeling. It's a really sad feeling that you need a little time to sit with.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it. I guess it was just meant to be. Thank
Yeah, we're really sorry, Danielle. We're sorry for your loss, and we wish you all the best.
Yeah.
Poor Danielle. Albert.
It's the hardest position to be in, the one that she's in, especially dealing with a sibling in that scenario. I don't know how. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
When you give up your life to do what she did, and you're doing all the doctor appointments, and you're lifting your mother out of a car, and you're carrying. I mean, it's physically tough. It's not even emotionally tough. There's a physicalness to it that your body, at however old you are, it's hard to do, and it's not just an emotional toll. It's a strain on you physically. So it's a lot.
For people, it's a strain physically. It's a strain economically.
Yes.
Yeah,
Right?
this caretaker burnout is like real. That's
Yes.
real stuff, right?
Yep.
Real stuff. And I really advise people to because it's real, and because when that happens, then you're no good to yourself, and you're no good to your parent either. You're no good to anyone, right? So I really say you have to get real with yourself about your limits, okay? And then you have to define, and then you have to go back to that parent and say some form of, these are my limits. So what will we do now to fill in for those limits? We need some part-time help. It cannot be me all the time. I can come once a week. I can't come every day. You need to state your limits, and then work out a plan of how you will make up for what needs to be made up for, even if your parent doesn't love it.
I have another question. What if, you want to help, just say, your father, and then your mom is, for lack of a better word, cock blocking you, not saying gatekeeping the situation. How do you deal with that?
Yeah. So the question, of course, is usually why. Why is the other parent blocking your ability to help? And usually, again, unfortunately, it comes back to a fear that they're looking at the end of their partner's independence, and their partners being the kind of partner that they want them to be, they need them to be. And this highlights that, and it scares them, right? It means that this is over, right? The partnership that they've had. And guilt and a feeling of loss of them. In other words, they should be able to do this. And you're coming in and saying, I have to do this, means you're saying they can't do it, right? Mm-hmm. At some level to them. So it is about approaching them, therefore, and saying, look, I see that this is, I know you can do lots of things, but it's extra taxing. It's extra hard. So I'm really trying to think of how, you and I put our heads together, you, mom, me, and me, let's put our heads together about what would work, that you would feel comfortable with, that I can be helpful in getting for you guys to make this easier, to make this so that you can continue on the way you have been continuing on. It's really a matter of putting in your head and acknowledging that these fears of these various things are making her go, no, you're not telling me that I can't do this for him, or he can't do it for himself, or you're going to put us in a home, or whatever it means to her. And saying instead, no, really what I'm saying is, can we collaboratively, I want to collaborate with you on what I can help bring to the table that would be helpful to you, mom. So it's not all on you, because this is hard. And to you, dad, so that you can, maintain the best of you, because you'll have this support.
What if there's an adversarial relationship between one parent, if Jan, say, has an adversarial relationship with one of her parents, but she needs to caretake another parent? What happens then?
Yeah. Ideally, you be able to go to the parent who needs the help and have this collaborative conversation where you don't have to get into where what might be happening, the blocking, the gatekeeping may have more to do with, I'm angry at you, right? We have this adversary. I'm always angry at you. So I don't want your help. That sort of situation. So that's a thing that you would have to work out with that relationship before you're going to right? This is just a behavior as a result of the emotional problem that the two of you have, which is something that could be worked on. But in the meanwhile, ideally it's going to the father, for example, and saying, I see this is difficult. I'd like to do this. I know, I'm not sure if mom would be accepting of that. How do you feel about it? Can I do X, Y, Z? Now, look, kids, no matter their age, can never put themselves in between that couple.
Right.
And it's not really best for them or for you to put yourself between them and divide them further.
Okay. We're going to take a commercial break, and we'll be back with Dr. Gail Saltz in just a minute. Stick around. This is a big one. I mean, we're going to have Dr. Gail back because we have too many callers and not enough time. But my mom said something very funny a couple of years back. And she said to me, and this was back in, when certain health issues, because we are lucky enough to still have all four of our parents. But certain health issues were popping up like whack-a-mole. On Mark's side, my side, it was just this and that. And my mom said, we didn't do this with our parents because our parents just dropped dead. and they are from that generation where parents just, keeled over.
Yes.
And now we know it a lot, and we are benefiting from the longevity of medicine, better living, better health. But
you know what we're benefiting? We're benefiting from long quantity,
yes,
but not long quality.
Yes.
So we're all talking now in medicine about health span, and how do we improve health span? Because living like you're not living is not exactly a gift. And so you're right. People are living, and that's why, a lot of the financial issues come to bear, because we supporting this very aged and not medically well population is become overwhelming, and it's difficult, and it's difficult for you adult children, where the burden falls on you. And usually, right, the parent would be gone and you be aging.
Right. Well, we've got a call. Let's get to, we've got Kelly in San Francisco. Kelly, hi, you're on with Dr. Gail.
Hey, hi, Kelly. Hi, Dr. Gail. Shout out to Mark and Stump Mark.
Thank you.
We pray for Mark. But I just wanted to also just echo that everybody was saying, like, I am going through it, y'all. Like, we just lost my dad in March. My mom was one of 7. As she was burying her last sibling, she walked into my dad was being carted out. The family dog died 2 weeks after that. Everything that you can imagine. And I come from a very big, loving family where everybody wants to step in, put their 2 cents in. You need to do this. You need to do that. Of course, I'm the younger of the siblings. My dad was one of 14. My mom was one of 7. So you can imagine all the point of views coming my way. But I guess what we were left with is we didn't know how sick my dad was. So, all these bills that are coming through, it's like a scavenger hunt every time I go over there. And my mom is just like, she's stuck. She's like stuck because
she's totally overwhelmed.
My mom was 19. She's 86 now. So they were married 68 years. She was a teacher and educator. All she knows is how to open up that classroom, get everybody but take care of everybody else, but she's just not taking care of herself. She's stuck. And so now, with bills piling up and, her just like, she just basically says, okay, sure. Yeah. As multicolored bills come in, and I'm like, I have siblings, they're in the East Coast, and I have one down here. He's not, that well to help me in the day to day. I work full time. My husband works full time. We don't have children, but, I threw myself into therapy because I knew this was going to fall on me. I just knew it. But I guess my question is, how do I unstick my mom? She can get around. her thing is she's stuck on the Hallmark Channel, y'all. She watches that shit every day, and I'm like, Mom, did you watch the news? Do you know what's happening? The biggest thing was we're in the we're in the Bay Area, and she wants to make gumbo, and everything's fine, but then all the dust settled. I'm like, girl, this bill's got to be paid. Like, come on.
Kelly, I'm just saying, if she's making gumbo, I can come over and help organize her bills.
And invite all y'all. I'm serious. But I just, like I said, I threw myself into therapy, and, I have to step back because sometimes you don't agree with the therapist all the time. And like the one thing that she said, the therapist was like, it's not your job to take care of your mom. And I wanted to punch her in her face, but
don't punch your therapist.
What do I do? As far as, do I bring her into one of my sessions to say, hey, so I can have somebody else say what I've been trying to say in different ways to get her unstuck? Because, quite as Kev, Daddy took care of everything.
Dr. Gail,
this is a very complicated situation. I don't know that I could say that an 86-year-old woman who had a marriage her whole life where he didn't let her in on, bill paying and how to do that and all, like she has no experience because that's the way they ran, who has lost her husband and her life partner and is managing from a coping strategy to make gumbo and watch TV, and frankly, the news is hardly cheery. I don't think actually it's so bad she's watching the Hallmark Channel. She could be, if you said to me she's stuck, like she won't get out of bed, I'd be like, okay, she is, has severe grief and she needs to see someone and so on. But she doesn't sound like that. She just sounds like she's living as she has lived. And asking her at 86 to take on new skill sets in the financial department may not go the way you would hope it would go. Now, why should it all fall to you? I don't know. There are
a lot of siblings.
Yeah, on every side. You do have to have your limits. So the question is, there needs to be like a family powwow. My goodness, there are, what did you say, 14 plus 7? There are, 21 of you, and there needs to be a powwow of how this division of labor will go on. But what you might talk about in your therapy is why you feel it all has to be you, because that doesn't sound very reasonable or fair. And each of you need to share in some of this burden of helping her.
Dr. Gail, though, wouldn't you say, in my experience, it's always the daughter who is on site that bears the bulk of the responsibility?
So the daughter on site ends up bearing particularly the hands-on. But let's be real, finances do not need to be hands-on.
That's right. Yeah, the other siblings need to step up for sure.
What you need is transparency in the finances, like contact with hospitals in the area that they dealt with or whatever. Okay, we need to organize here and see what can be done. And so she needs to provide transparency, which it sounds like won't be a problem. Like she doesn't have an issue with that. But you're right. Unfortunately, what you might end up bearing is sort of like she fell down and she can't get up, or the physical equivalence ends up being the person often nearby. And still, I would say to you, there might need to be some rotation. Who else is in the area? Who else, can help provide a home health aid financially? Those sorts of things.
Kelly, thank you so much for your call. Dr. Gail, what happens if a parent says, I don't ever want to be put in a nursing home? What happens?
This is when you need to say to a parent, let us talk about the whys and then the realities of the situation. So you can say, I hear you. Why? What does a nursing home represent to you? That would be different. What are the things specifically about because people have a lot of ideas, some which could be true, some not true, or it might be something very specific that could still be addressed in a skilled nursing facility. So understanding what does that mean? Then the next thing is, here's the money situation, mom and dad. given the financial realities and the fact that I am not going to bankrupt myself and my children, which is you have to make some limits for yourself that are reasonable, okay? What would you want? What is affordable that you would want that could sustain you if you truly, at some point, lack capacity to care for yourself? Have a logical conversation about it. That is the best that you can do.
Thank you, Dr. Gail. This has been so helpful and informative. I really think we need to do a part two. I mean, honestly,
we have so many
calls we didn't get to. We have so many, and we have so much more information, so many more questions. Dr. Gail, you have been completely invaluable. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys for having me and for talking about this, because it really sooner or later, right? Everybody's got a mom and dad, and this is how it goes.
Well, thanks so much. And we'll talk with you all off camera next week. Bye, everyone.
Let's Talk Off Camera with Kelly Ripa is a production of Melojo Productions. From Melojo, our team is Kelly Ripa, Mark Consuelos, Albert Bianchini, Jan Chalet, Seth Gronquist, Ross Therian, Devin Schneider, Michael Halpern, Julia Desch, and Team Radio Andy, Lisa Mantaneo, Scott Marlowe, Jake Getz.